All right, welcome back to the Cantina. We've got a lot to talk about. Specifically, we're gonna hit a lot about Skeleton Crew episode 3, a very interesting astrogation problem. Someone help me here. Had it and lost it.
As an astrogation.
Well, we're gonna talk about episode 3.
The title of the
Astrogation
episode.
problem.
Yeah. I it is.
Yeah. Yeah. So much to talk about. Before we get there, we got some like minor news to talk about that I think might be interesting. Some casting news leaked from the Mandalorian Grogu movie, and there's like 2 pieces of information that are interesting. I guess we'll start with kind of the biggest news that's really been taking the internet by storm, and that's everyone's favorite actor currently, Jeremy Allen White. From The Bear, who's great. I've always been a booster of his, but he's going to be showing up as who's he showing up as? Someone remind me.
Wait, can I check notes? Jabba the Hutt's son.
Jabba the Hutt's son. Rada the Hutt.
Rada the Hutt.
Rada, thank you. I could not remember Rada.
AKA Stinky,
yeah,
right?
I have a Stinky
from Clone Wars movie fame.
Okay, yeah, I have not a long history, but so I went to go see. I saw the Clone Wars movie in theaters.
Same.
I think I've told the story before. And that was back when like Meetup was a thing, where you could like find random people to go to things. And so that was like my first and only Meetup
experience.
Adventure, because I did that, and I'm like, okay, I'm just gonna be frank. I'm like, this movie stinks, and the people I'm with stink, and I just don't want to do any of this. No offense to that first, no offense, but I still to this day think that the Clone Wars movie is not good.
For
It's
sure.
a very small scale plot that seems sort of like superfluous for where you want to sort of the storytelling to go, but like it's fun. There's some fun moments.
Yeah, I mean, so I've rewatched it a couple times, the whole Clone Wars animated series, and like the last few times, other than the first time, I watched everything in chronological order, which I suggest to everyone. So when you do that, you get a bunch of episodes before you hit the movie, just like 2 or 3, like and then it just feels like a long episode, and it just like had a lot of gravity around it because it was such a new thing when Clone Wars came out. But yes, it's mostly introducing or furthering the story of Ahsoka, which is weird because Ahsoka gets introduced in this film, and then her first adventure is to rescue Rada the Hutt, aka Stinky, and bring him back to Jabba the Hutt because reasons I totally forget why.
I don't.
And I'm like, why? Either. And then it became like a territorial dispute, and there was a race between Asajj Ventress and Count Dooku and Anakin and Ahsoka to sort of save Rada the Hutt, a.k.a. Stinky, which is a great name.
Do we think Stinky will speak Galactic Basic or Huttese when we see it?
Huttese. I'm just imagining like Huttese, Jeremy Allen's White, it's like face superimposed on a Hutt, like poorly speaking, like just doing the bear, just speaking normally.
I think it'll be a completely different character that he's ever done before. Maybe something like hilarious or in the comedic vein.
Yeah.
Like do some voice affectation.
Like a cartoonish sort of voice would be great.
I didn't see what was the wrestling movie he was in.
I saw.
Did anyone see that movie last year? How was he? So like, I loved him in Shameless, and I love him in The Bear. But those 2 characters, Lip and who's he playing The Bear? I can never remember his name.
Carmine.
Basic name. Yeah.
Carmine
and Lip are like not. There's not a lot of distance between those 2 characters. So I don't know his range, and so I was curious if in that wrestling movie that it's really escaped me what the name of that was. If he was just
he's
playing
one of the
Von
Erich brothers in Iron Claw. And he's really good in it. Like it's everyone I think puts in a really good performance in that movie. It's just a really tough movie that's almost more spiritual and symbolic than this sort of like meaty drama piece, which is kind of cool. It's kind of an interesting wrestling movie in that sense. But he's really good in it. I don't know if he has a lot of speaking lines in that movie. Like honestly, he's one of the more quiet brothers who's really successful.
Yeah. I guess what I'm getting at is like I haven't seen him much other than that, and I think he's an excellent actor. I think he's really good in the 2 big things he's been in. I just don't know his ranges, so it's very interesting. And I guess my big question is, why? Like why this role?
And if you're gonna get this caliber actor, like,
right,
why a voice acting role for a Hutt? Like, I mean, is it? I think it's just some people like know Filoni and Favreau and meet them in passing, and they're like, "Dude, I love what you did to the Mando." Like, he's like, "Oh, do you want to be in it?" And they're like, "Yeah." He's like, "All right, I got this awesome Hutt speaking role for it." Like, if you're gonna get Jeremy Allen White, though, don't you want him to act? Like, can't you see him in like an old like Republic uniform or someone in Andor or something, just like another rebel or like. I don't know. I just feel I'm like, hey, listen, glad to have him, but it's like a resource that rich. I kind of want to mine for as much as possible.
I mean, you have Evan Moss Baccarat in Andor, and now we're getting Jeremy Allen White. Like, I hope we get Abby Elliott. I hope we get everyone from the Bear in a Star Wars.
Honest to God,
I think we should. It's super fun, and it's fun to have this sort of crossover with prestige television, essentially, right? Like, this is. You're getting, the Bears winning an Emmy every year, essentially, that it's on. I mean, you're bringing talent over from FX, and the Bear is like a really awesome idea, in my opinion, because it maybe will push Star Wars into the eyes of the critics and sort of like broader, Hollywood.
The greater zeitgeist.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I also wonder if that means we're going to get, like, I don't know what the story's going to be. I think we can hypothesize a little bit, but I wonder if this is going to be a character that goes on from this, right? That becomes a bit of a big, not necessarily big bad, but like similar to Jabba is kind of the gangster that we think of, right? In this time period.
Dude, mark my words. I am the Mandalorian Whisperer. I'm going to actually own this mantle now. You will see. This means that Ahsoka is in this movie, or. Nope. Now I'm thinking maybe he'll be part of like a. Nope. This means Ahsoka. I'm sticking with my guns. Ahsoka will be in this movie, and you will hear the word "stinky" in this movie. Like, there's no way that Filoni's not playing that card.
Yeah,
because I just wonder, that's the only connection to any of these characters is Ahsoka. And I mean, maybe they're just like, oh yeah, Ahsoka's lost, and he's like, that's a bummer. Maybe I should send my Hutt starship extragalactically, to go get her. But like, I mean, that's we didn't have on our bingo card. But that connection, I think, is like the fact that you even created this character. I think you have to play the like connection with Ahsoka card. Am I dumb?
Can I? No, I don't think you're dumb at all. I think that it makes a ton of sense. I think my thought is that he's going to make it out of this movie alive, and that's something that's going to happen in Ahsoka season 2 or later on, because I really don't think we're getting Ahsoka. But my thought is maybe this even confirms my theory that we're going to get Luke and other people in it, because if Stinky beats another Jedi,
right,
that gives them the opportunity to talk about, well, I've met a Jedi before, right? Like, it gives a little bit of, like,
it gives him, was right. He met a few, and he knows the dark side, which is interesting.
And I own the light, yeah.
I mean, I guess that's right. So it gives his character some context, and maybe if you know sort of thing. But I think we worked out the timeline, and if, like, according to, like, when they're going to start recording, like, I think they said, like, Ahsoka could come out right before the film. Or was it right after? Right before, I think, this summer.
It's unclear. They're writing right now, so they could absolutely. I mean, I think movies come out. I mean, television comes out much faster, so they could absolutely get it in under the deadline. So you're right. Yeah. She could be back by then. I also think, like, here's the other thing to think about. We have Rhoda the Hutt, son of Jabba. We also have another character who's now been renamed Leia the Slut.
I'm sorry, what? The Hutt Slayer?
Oh no, we're live. The Hutt Slayer.
The old slut hair.
Oh god.
We'll keep that in. That's staying.
That's a regretful moment.
Yeah.
That's gonna haunt me for the rest of the episode.
Relations. What's going on?
Wow. I can't believe you called Princess Leia. Boy. That's.
I know.
Not very PC.
I need to go.
Anyways, we'll be replacing Adam next week.
Yeah, please. I'm officially canceled. So, my point is, like, how do you not have, like, the person who killed his father show up in this thing, right?
Yeah. Oh. Yeah. Oh, that was actually kind of my first thing back when I heard this, was running through it. Yeah. I mean, you're right. You're totally right, dude. Like, yeah, that's his nemesis, right? Like, you killed my father. Like, so, I mean, that adds fodder to the Republic sentiment for him.
Do we think Rana the Hutt is like an upstanding citizen and supporter of the New Republic, or do we think the Hutts are still the Hutt cartel, and they're still in the sort of part of the criminal underworld of the galaxy.
I think the Hutts are much diminished from what we know from the Crimson Reign comics, where Vader killed most of them during. Like really though, happened. Remember?
Yes.
Yeah, most of them. I mean, we saw the twins in Mandalorian, and their names are escaping me. But I mean, the fact that they chickened out because the Pikes were there, like massively chickened out, was like, here's a Rancor, we're out of here because of the Pikes. That means the Hutts are much diminished.
Well, to me, when you add a Hutt to the story, it makes me think Boba Fett is sort of the obvious character that's going to appear in this movie, which he has a precedent for being in sort of the Mando's story and Grogu's story.
And you think of Tatooine when you think of Jabba the Hutt, right? And it's weird. It'd be a good story to have him be coming back to reclaim his father's throne, basically, and rebuild the Hutt cartel.
Yeah, or maybe a trade. I'm not convinced that like Rod of the Hutt was like, I mean, he liked the Jedi. He was saved by the Jedi. His life was saved by them, and who knows how children rebel against their fathers. And they're in a different place. Like, it wouldn't shock me if we got a different flavor of Hutt here with Rada.
Yeah, I can see that too. Yeah.
To me, it's like you could do a sort of like fun story with Mando and Grogu sort of misstepping in Hutt territory, and then they get a death mark, and sort of the whole galaxy's gunning for them, because that's very Lone Wolf and Cub, and that's sort of something we haven't seen, like the death mark on the Lone Wolf and Cub. You know what I mean? Like I think they're in those films. And
I mean, the beginning of the first season, there was a death mark, right? They were running, right?
On Grogu, that's right.
Yeah, on Grogu, right? Yeah. But yes, but you could definitely, you could definitely elaborate on that, and then both of them, and they become a thing. I know, it really feels like they're wrapping up Mandalorian, but I really, in my heart, hope they don't. I'd love to see this carry on. I mean, your two main characters are stunt actors in a mask, a voice actor, and a puppet. So that doesn't speak. Yeah. So I just think it's so good. Like, I'd love to get Mandalorian for another 10 years. Like, honestly,
Old Man Din fighting the First Order.
I'm in. I'm in.
Sure.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. I'm in. I don't know. That's just my own personal thing, but that's generally where I sit.
No, I agree. Like, there's no reason to really think about, like, for all the reasons you said, there's no reason other than they don't want to keep telling these stories, right? Or they have a specific ending in place for these characters. Yeah. But yeah, I see them kind of, they're evergreen for those reasons. Like, you can just, like you said, you have a voice actor and a puppet.
Yeah, and you've got a Mandalorian and a Jedi, or Force sensitive, if we're going to be technical. And, they can, imagine they just have farcical romps through the galaxy, and like, I'm here for it.
And yes, we should be technical, because oh boy, are we going to be getting technical when we talk about episode 3 of Skeleton
Let's
Crew.
Do it.
Jedi or Force sensitives.
Yeah.
You want to just jump into it?
Yeah, I think we need to get put our pirate boots on and march on over to the Onyx Cinder.
Yo, so when did they say Onyx Cinder? Because I didn't.
It's not said yet in the show.
Okay, but it's all over Wikipedia, and I'm like, are they burying the lead? Like, why are they? They haven't. They're like kind of teasing us about the name of that ship, and I think it's going to be important, and yet it's already common knowledge, which kind of makes me sad. I just found the name when I was like doing a quick.
The probability that ship is important is high probability.
Yes,
that ship is important.
Yes, especially because you have the episode, you have that moment where Crimson Jack. I'm just calling him that. We'll talk about why I'm calling him that later.
All right.
Specifically, that's his title. Like, how do we not go with that? Specifically asks Smee, what's the name of the ship, right? And then you get like a Mr. Like, you just get a quick misdirect. So like, if you're asking that question, it's because it matters, right? So, yeah.
I mean, Oh, Sidon Ithana. All right. Okay. Well, I guess we'll get there later. Why don't we start at the beginning on this one?
Yeah.
And just like go chronologically through.
Agreed.
Yeah. I mean, first scene, you have despondent parents, which is always fun. Did you see anyone see the mural in the
I did see the mural, yes. It did catch my eye.
Yeah.
So I think there is a black human male, a angelic white human female in a white dress with like a sort of corona around her. Then you have the new alien species, which is the same species as Neil. Yeah, but it's like an adult, and then
and they're all wearing they're all wearing like flowing sort of High Republic garb.
Robes.
It looks
they are very much. Yeah. But just to confirm, Neil is not a new species. That's
I think he is.
That's Nice Noodles character. That's a Nice Noodles.
No, Nice Noodles is the singer. You're talking about Max Rebo. He's
Max Rebo. He's not.
You can check it out. He's a new species because he has arms, and Max Rebo does not.
All right.
He's Ortolan.
Yeah, I guess you're right.
Ortolan.
Right.
Yeah, they're Ortolan adjacent, but
right.
He's not an Ortolan. Yeah. It does have the same head. Really.
Yeah.
Weirdly,
that makes sense.
Everything except a more humanoid. Yeah.
It totally makes sense because you couldn't do a Max Rebo in live action would be tough. Yeah. To constantly have that. All right.
But they can't believe that alien designs in the show, and I love it honestly.
So many.
Yeah. Anyway. Yeah. In that picture, there's also there's a seated Ethorian, and there's also a seated human male with his back of his head like turned away from the mural, and he looks a lot like Anakin Skywalker in episode 3. I'm just gonna say that. I don't think he is, but it's just like a human male looking away. So when we got in like whatever episode 2, I think when Neil's like, whoa, aliens, it's like maybe there's only 3 species on because we saw Thorians and we saw this new species and we saw the green girl that Neil has a crush on. Yeah, so there's only a handful.
Yeah, there's a couple.
What's interesting is I think we can put to rest our like first order separatist sort of like sinister faction sort of like stuff, because I feel like that mural and sort of how transparent the parents are in that moment and seeing that they're really in distress and that they all want to meet with the supervisor, but the supervisor is apparently someone who doesn't take meetings.
I know. I wonder. I'm just getting like Wizard of Oz vibes off the supervisor now.
Yes, 100%.
And I mean that makes sense. Obviously, that was the groundwork for so much of Kurosawa Seven Samurai was sort of that too, and but I don't know. I mean, I definitely think the supervisor could be nefarious. And they could be connected to they could be the only. I'm imagining they're the only ones connected to stuff outside the planet. But
do you want to hear my new theory?
Yes, very much so.
Because I'm gonna have a new theory every single week. Because I agree. I'm now moved on from my first order. Here's my theory. Because later in the episode we get the fact that Crimson Jack hates droids, doesn't trust droids. Talking about it. This is a droid controlled planet. This is a droid controlled planet that are acting like humans, and this is what the droids have done to just make their the little sheep do their work for them. So it's basically AI is taking over.
That makes so much sense. That's
my new theory. That's my theory.
Because it's a perfect echo from what he said in the cockpit there, where he goes, "Droids will let you down every time," or something to that effect. And you start to think when the droids are like, "Oh, the supervisor is not taking like any meetings today or whatever," like that's prohibited or whatever. Like nothing can go beyond the barrier, and if it does, like we cannot, contact the ship. We will not contact.
It's like the episode of whatever episode of Star Trek where they realize they're the controller of the planet is just a giant computer. They've been worshiping and talking to a giant computer.
I think that's right. I think you're right because of that line.
Yeah, your online girlfriend is a bot. I'm so sorry to be the one to break that to you.
It's also prescient with AI.
It's actually a brilliant.
It's a very prescient idea. Yeah.
All right, I love that. That's written in stone.
And data we trust until the data starts.
Stay tuned for next week when I have a new idea.
When that gets like, because they do send a lot of misdirects in this show, in a fun way. Like you really thought for a second, like because they've done it in Star Wars 1,000 times, that like they let Jod Nanawood go free, Captain Silvo, aka Crimson Jack. Because so that they could follow him, or he was like actually working with Brutus to earn his freedom or something to so they let them get away, because you get that quote from Fern being like that was too easy, and it's like that. I mean, that's pulled again directly from A New Hope. I'm pretty sure that's it. I mean, everything else indicated that was absolutely not.
Yeah,
the
this
case.
episode's a masterclass in subtext, honestly, because all the characters are saying things that are just what feel like foreshadowing.
Yeah.
It's still,
it is. Yeah,
it's still
yeah.
part of the setup of these first 3 episodes.
It's all set up. Yeah, it's all set up. I just finished a Stephen King novel, and Stephen King is the king of foreshadowing, like no pun intended. And I'm just like, so now I'm like really primed for foreshadowing because it's just constant.
It will be deeply poetic, I think. Of he's not trusting of droids, and then their planet obviously controlled by droids.
Yeah,
that's fascinating. But can we talk about the Force using in the hallway? Like, I don't want to brush past stuff.
Yeah, I mean but that's our next scene, right? Pretty much. Yeah.
The escape. Yeah. I mean, what do you want to say? I mean,
I want to say that's the Force. I mean,
that's definitely.
Can we all are we all in agreement that he is using the Force? 100%, he's using the Force.
And I think they definitely, all the comments around it, they're like, oh, he could have done tricks and whatever. I think the real the part that nailed it was when he flicked off the light switch with a wave of his hand to KB. And KB. Just like no, he's like no, this is real, and he did the and obviously he did the knock down the wall, which is the far noise and the classic Obi-Wan thing. Like they're really just pulling from A New Hope here.
They are, and that's where I kind of buy it in because I'm like, I don't know how you do the magnets, right, or any other trick, and they also do the other thing is 2 things, and it relates back. If they didn't do this in Obi-Wan, I'd be more suspicious, but they're not going to play that card twice. It's just not going to do that. And the second thing is they're using the Force sound effect that is now part of it when we hear it. So that would be a cheat as well. And then thirdly, and we'll talk about this later, it seems like a horrible rug pull on children. If you don't let this guy have the Force, that seems really
he has to be a magical scoundrel,
mean-spirited, right? Like magic has to be real to these kids. Like you can't have that be the thing. You can have him not be a Jedi, but you can't have him not have the Force.
He states his motivation in this episode, though. He says he thinks he's found the score that he's always promised the crew, he's always been searching for.
He's weirdly somewhat, I feel like, I don't know how to say this, but as much as he's not 100% telling everything that's going on, I feel like he is fairly truthful and honest in a weird way. Like he lies by omission, but he doesn't seem to actually lie.
That's true. And I mean, we do get the line sort of towards the end where he says, "Is where they finally corner him and they're like, what is your deal?" And he's like, "Listen, I'm just like you. I'm lost. I'm alone."
That was a great moment. Yeah. Law crushed that.
That's so good. That's why you get Jude Law.
Just being great. Swoon.
So then we go. I love when they get to the end of the hallway, and he's like, "We can either go this way where it's crowded, or this way where it's empty." And they're like, "Let's go empty." And he's like, "It's much easier to walk through a crowd than go through an empty space." I was like, "This is a great scene. It kind of tells you who this character is. He kind of sneaks around. He's definitely a scallywag, a pirate, a scoundrel.
That's the thing. He's full of it within that one scene, which is I think it was kind of the perfect scene, because I remember I watched this last night in bed by myself. Not by myself. Carly was next to me, but she was sleeping. And I was sitting there. The reason I wanted to rewatch it is because I was just it was late. I was half awake, and this is the show feels very dreamlike at times, where I'm like, I gotta rewatch this because it feels like a fever dream at times. But that scene, I'm like, you immediately know, I'm like, yeah, he's full of it, or not full of it. He's not a full-fledged Jedi, because the moment he's just like, oh, much of the Force. The second he says
Neil used the Force.
Whim, I'm like,
or it's KB. No, it's KB uses the Force.
Whim. He says it to Whim,
and then someone else.
Oh no, the Force flows through all of us, I think was one of his lines, right?
Yeah. Yeah, he says all of these lines, which feels like fake platitudes.
But also when she's like, the Jedi never leave anyone behind, and he's like, that's not a thing Jedi say. And
that's not a Jedi thing. He says that's not a Jedi thing that Jedi say. Is the direct quote, which I love, because I was like, I gotta mark that one down. It's not a Jedi thing that Jedi say. Yeah,
which has sort of reverberations of that's not how the Force works. And I don't know. So he knows about the Jedi. I mean, obviously he lived when the Jedi were still in part of the Republic. But yeah, I mean, obviously this mystery box keeps getting more and more interesting.
So Ben, I know you were pretty adamant that he could be a Jedi, or you want to definitely keep open the idea that he could be a Jedi. Where are you now after this episode?
I mean, I don't think that's the case. Like, I really thought sort of Fallen Jedi, like Caleb Dune lost his way, but I think they're doing something different here, which makes a lot of sense and is cool. I guess, and as you turned around a question I was going to ask you, but I think I'm leaning towards, I mean, maybe he just wasn't found during, like, he was alive during all of that. But like,
so you still think he is a pretty good chance he's a Jedi?
No, I think he was a Force sensitive that was never found by the Jedi, which is wild. Yeah. Because like they were so hard pressed. Again, we read the novel, the Red Blade, yes. And right, fantastic novel, and it's like. From that, they were really hard pressed for kind of anyone, but I guess you can't really be recruiting when you're at war. So maybe he was overlooked, but I find it. I mean, he's strong enough.
That's actually brilliant. That's deeply poetic.
Well,
that's sort of the whim story, but just gone in sort of a tragic direction. Like the looking for adventure, the looking for hope, the hoping someone
and
sees
not
your
being
power
found
in you, not being found, not having your power.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. I like that a lot. It's not what I was thinking, but now that we're talking about it, it totally fits with this theory. My theory before this, because I definitely leaned towards that, was that he wasn't a Padawan. He was a youngling that bounced out, right? Because either he just left, he didn't do it, or like all we've seen him do is float a key, switch a light switch, and make a sound. And I wonder if might be the extent of his Force ability, right? That he just didn't progress past that.
That would draw some deep emotions out of me. If for some reason we flash back to a sort of teacher or a Jedi master talking to him about stuff, because that could be so interesting if he still uses that advice in his adulthood. Would be very cool to see. But I don't know. I just don't know if he was a Jedi. I think he's just. To me, it's like maybe the war came.
But I like the idea that he was never found.
Like Ben's talking about. The war came, and you see droid command ships and things like that. Like that, I would immediately understand that like Jedi aren't recruiting in the times of war, and they're. I think they learned from the High Republic. I remember when they're sort of accelerating Jedi to Knights and going through, whatever that protocol was. To me, I was like, this is maybe they learned that they can't just create a war machine for their peacekeeping efforts, essentially.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how we don't really have a as precise a description of what the protocols were during the Clone Wars as opposed to like the High Republic battle against the Nihil.
You're right. We don't know what the Jedi legislation was during the Clone Wars at all.
Right. What the is, we know they were pressing people into service that were there. But I mean, I'd like to think there was enough of them that there's like people that like their whole job, like hopefully Finn in the Rey series, is just all they're doing is recruitment. They're just like finding people and bringing them in, and and so like maybe that was going on. I can't imagine them being like, well, I'm going to stop doing this now because there's a war on. It's like you need those people the most in those moments. So I don't know. I'm probably 60-40, like 60% he was never found, 40%, maybe 70-30. The lower percentage that like he was just marginalized by the Clone Wars. In some way, like maybe he was found, taught for a little bit, lost his master, sort of floated out. The thing I don't want is that they were like, you're not strong enough in the Force, you're going to be, and this comes from the Jedi Path, which is not canon, I don't believe. The book, the Jedi Path, that like you don't have enough power, you're going to be like a Force, I don't know, administrator or a Force gardener, or like a, like where they sort of like, it's like rejects get sent to other camps. I know it's meant to be inclusive and like, oh, the Force works in many ways and that's cool, but like, I don't know. I'm hoping that.
Can I just say this? This may not be I don't think this is the first pirate character that can use the Force.
Go on.
Isn't there knowledge that Maz Kanata can use the Force, or at least knows about the Force in a very deep way as a sort of pirate who's traveled the galaxy and probably like has a spiritual side? And the Force is a very real sort of part of maybe her pirate culture and the people that roll in her castle. Like, to me, I'm like, he fits in with Maz. And there's a character that gets introduced in this episode that when I first heard the voice,
very
was like,
Maz,
this Maz
like,
Kanata?
Yeah.
And I almost thought she would fit in perfectly with sort of our Crimson Jack character. But we'll see. Also, Crimson, that's a wild choice that we'll talk about.
Right? Like,
we'll talk about for this at some point.
Yeah. So I wanna say one more thing that kind of this sparked in my head, which is just like, I agree, Ben. I don't want it to be that like you're not powerful enough story plot. They might go that way, but I hope not. Part of me is like, are we doing a Star-Lord analogous story from Marvel, meaning that like, maybe the other side of this is that yes, he wasn't found in the Jedi, but he was found by someone else. He was found by pirates, and pirates and his whoever it was knew he was Force sensitive. It was just like, what a boon this is, that we can keep this kid hiding from the Jedi and have this power. Is basically Force using pirate, right? And
you know, after like rereading and thinking about that quote where he says, "I'm just like you, I'm lost," like that makes me think there's a path there where it's like that pirate mentality like stunted his Jedi ability. And it's like, as if he starts following the true path of the Jedi, his strength comes to him, and you know, suddenly it gets easier, and you know, he senses the Force more. And I really think that's coming for him at some point. He's going to have to make a choice and make the virtuous choice, and in that moment, like, you know, things align for him, and he is found, you know, emotionally, you know, mentally and physically.
It has to mirror Wim's sort of longing for more love and stuff like that too, where it basically, for Crimson Jack, I imagine it's this idea that he's alone, right? It's that longing that we see Wim sort of experiencing in the beginning of the film, but his is maybe on like an even, you know, sort of harsher degree or circumstance, where it's like he maybe was lost as a kid, like he is the lost child archetype almost for these kids to meet, who's now older, and then you get this really fun sort of I don't know, sort of like a echo chamber of like Wim and him and that whole theme.
Yeah. I feel like this is the beginning of his Jedi story, right? Like that's kind of the way I'm feeling. Like, it's like we get the Luke story of like, but what if you find like a middle-aged guy, right? Like, I feel like that's interesting, which they did used to do in the old canon, right? In the Legends stuff, they did find a lot of people.
And who's the other guy there? Big name. He had a blaster.
Kyle Katarn. Yeah. Which, by the way, this is about as close as you're going to get to Kyle Katarn.
That's true.
And I feel like he is, and I think what is kind of brilliant about the storytelling, like last week I was so excited that like, when we're talking about like, the kids aren't looking for the treasure map, they are the treasure map, which by the way was like a line from this episode. We're like, yes, love it. But the other thing I love is that like, we thought we were getting a Luke Skywalker and we got a Han Solo. Like, that's what the story is. Like, he is Han. Like, he's very much a scoundrel, which is again a direct quote from this episode, but it's going to be his redemption arc, or not his redemption, because Han didn't really need a redemption, but his like, I don't know, this idea of like, this is the true path.
And I don't want to be cynical about this, but essentially it's both. And like, this character was made for us. Yeah. It's like, you know, the kids are for the kids, and then at the same time they're being like, you know what, Dad, your avatar is going to be a guy that's both a Jedi and a scoundrel. You're going to have it both ways.
Right.
Yeah. You can live vicariously through both of these things. And, you know, and it's the middle-aged dad that gets to like find his power and become the Jedi by following a virtuous path or whatever.
Totally.
He also gets to be this sort of role model for Wim, who's like, you're a Jedi, right? And he's like, you know what? For a few days I will be, you know? Yeah. This kid needs
It's
this.
funny. We're getting, as we get deeper into this, like all the kids have bits, and we got the Wim bit now where you just like, you know, when he pulls down the like the you know, gun turret, so you just see in his face, he's like, yes, and we're all Wim at that moment.
Yeah. We're all
the childhood glee and wonder in this episode.
I have to say, 100%. I'm a little tired with like Fern's negativity. I know her character is going to make a turn and be fantastic, and she'll reach her potential too.
You didn't think the cut was "I'm not tired, I'm not going to sleep," and then she's asleep.
That was the best cut. I again, having watched this directly after tonight, after Carly was up for bedtime tonight, we switch off, but we talk about it every time we're like, Charlie will just be in bed.
I'm not even tired.
And then like finally,
By the
then
way,
be
can
asleep
Jude Law
while
tuck us in tonight,
yes,
all of us at the
and
end of
then,
this pod.
right? I would love it. And then she'll go like when she's asleep, we'll start getting out of bed, and she'll wake up. She's like, I don't want to go to sleep. Like it's every night, and we're like, or she'll say this. I'm like, I've literally started telling her, I'm like, you are asleep. Like you are asleep right now. You don't realize you're asleep. You are asleep. So that both of us, when we were watching tonight, both like guffawed at that.
Yeah,
that's
that
like
such a good cut.
Pair.
Such a good
like,
funny
such
edit.
a great little moment. Yeah.
No, I think the Fern bits are, and I love when she's like, "That was too easy." That did sort of, make the gears in my mind sort of start turning. Where I was like,
she's a
like,
cynic.
is he getting? Is Brutus and Silva or Brutus and Jack still working together? Is something happening here?
But she's kind of mean-spirited,
no,
and I mean, and I know that those rough corners will be sanded down over time. And she's just like too much potential, too much ability, too smart, and just like bored by everything and hates everything and cynical about everything. And then but yeah, it's balanced out well with the other characters.
I thought the standoff at the end of this episode was fantastic, though. Like Fern's sort of lead in the standoff and calling for 33.
But KB really kind of led that.
Yeah.
And like after her conversation with Kim, which I thought was
KB's the realist.
And I thought that was actually a great moment for Kim, where she's like, did he say use your gut? Don't do that. Use your head. And she was like, okay, and like really put her foot down there. And I thought that was a nice moment for KB's development. KB's development. All right, so we talked about Wizard of Oz. Let's do a Wizard of Oz second for here, which is not big, but I want to talk about this. So if Wim is Dorothy, right? He's very much a Dorothy, right? Toto.
So Neil is Toto. No, but Neil is the Cowardly Lion. Yeah. Right? And then because if I only had courage, right? Like if I only had courage. Yeah. And then the Tin Man wants a heart, right? Like I'm just trying to put this together. Like Scarecrow wants a brain. Okay, this is falling apart immediately. But my point is, like, let's abandon this because it's not going to work.
Brains, but I don't know if
KB it totally doesn't work.
Okay, A for effort.
No, because everyone has a brain. A for effort, but it just fell apart immediately. But what I'm trying to say is, like, I like the fact that, like, you have these archetypal characters in the kids. Like, I love that Fern is the cynic and that KB's the realist and like Wim is the one who's just the dreamer and then Neil is just the heart. Like it just works.
Yeah. And then when Jod and Nawood puts them in their different roles in the ship, like Neil's piloting, KB's the Navicomputer. Fern and Wim are gunners. I was like, this is who they are. Totally. This is who these characters are. It was
but it was like it felt like a stretch for Neil. Neil is going to be my favorite character. I'm rooting for Neil the whole time.
Neil's
the best. I mean,
he's so great. And then and he was just like, I have no idea what I'm doing. Let's go. Like that. He's just like Neil is just like.
Jude Law's like evade or whatever. Like it's like the joystick. I was like,
he also. I love how much he's imprinted on. Crimson Jack, and we haven't really talked about it because my favorite line in this later in the episode, where I was just laughed both times, last night and this time, is that at some point at some point Crimson Jack says they're Kim's goons, right? And then later on they're fighting and you hear him go goons. Like Neil just yells goons at the X-Wings, and it's just so great. It's just a moment of like,
dude, that was harrowing for me, who's a staunch X-Wing and New Republic supporter, where I'm just like, no, I hope these kids don't like misfire and hit and kill it.
I know.
I think it was a style choice, but like they didn't do the like look in the cockpit, adjust a couple of controls. Like classic X-Wing stuff. It was very much they are the other, like in this show, which is kind of bummed me out. I was waiting for like a nostalgic, X-Wing moment, and it didn't. It wasn't really the exact thing, like it was in episode 5 of season 1 of Mandalorian, where they're just like they're coming into position and they're like, oh, let's go. But I mean, it was still great to see X.
No, because we're on the pirate side in this tale, right? Like those are our protagonists, and the X-Wings are the antagonists, which is fun.
I think they were shooting pulse rounds.
Ion pulse.
The ship at one point.
That's how they knocked out the one engine.
Is this the first time we've seen ion pulse rounds from X-Wings before?
I don't get. Yeah, I think
probably
they'll just be like,
the
oh,
animated.
and then we made enhancements instead of creating a new ship. Like they just like, oh no, it's a better X-Wing, which is like okay.
Which I mean, granted, we're in New Republic era. Right. I can buy it. Like I'm fine with it. But I feel like because they also say two things that happen in that moment that I like is that Crimson Jack specifically says like, just he doesn't say blasphemy. He's just like I can't remember the word he uses. Basically, there's like scare him away. Like he's just like he just says like he's not like trying to hit him. And then when the X-Wings land, they were like it was too dangerous with the kids there. So they know there's kids on the ship. They're not trying to like blow it up. So it was a good little moment of like we talked about. Kids in light peril. The show's kind of good at putting kids in like light enough peril that's not like, oh, by the way, has anyone seen the 28 years later trailer?
I haven't watched it yet. I hear it's really relaxing.
It's
really relaxing. I watched that 2 nights ago right before I went to bed. I did not go to bed. And by the way, I did not. I told Carly, I'm like, do not watch this. You're not going to watch this movie because the opening scene is kids in peril, and by that way, it's not like kids in peril. Maybe they'll get out. No. They're dead. They're all dead. All the kids are dead. It's horrible.
It's a Teletubby viewing party.
Teletubby. I was like, I like this, and then you see blood splattered across Teletubby. Like, I don't like it. I don't like it. Make him stop. Yeah. Scarred by a trailer.
Someone sent that around on Sunday morning, and like the next comment, it was like in one of my like group chats, and they were just like, "Wow, that was a really great breakfast treat. Like a good early morning trailer there. That was really soothing. Thank you."
I mean, I'm totally gonna go see it in the theaters, but I probably won't sleep for days.
That's the way those movies are. Anyway. This isn't going to become a 28 Days Later podcast, but man, I love those movies. Because they're terrifying. They're the scariest zombie movies ever.
The opposite, because and this is the opposite where they put kids in peril, but like light peril that you're not like. I'm not actually worried for them, right? Yeah.
I mean, when they had the fuel line connected and they were going to go hyperspace, I was like, could the ship just break asunder and explode? Yes, but
no,
they get out.
And right before
that was such a cool scene, by the way, when they go hyperspace with the fuel coil and it just goes smashes into the spaceport. I thought that was so cool.
I loved the scale, the use of scale in that it was really well done in terms of like you just think it's this little line and then watching it how big it is when it crashes.
It's actually a classic pirate like action set piece too, where it's like there's usually always a line on a ship or like on the ballast that like breaks and kills a guy or something.
Kind of whips
someone overboard. It like always happens.
If anyone wants a good time, watch the first 5 minutes of Ghost Ship and then and then watch that, and then don't.
And then Three Body Problem right after.
And then it's real bad. But the first 5 minutes of Ghost Ship is one of the best setups for a horror movie ever, and then does not deliver.
Noted.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, that ground.
No, it's fine. I need I'm looking back at my notes, and I took like opening scene notes, and then everything else is from the scene with Kim. And I mean, not because it's not fantastic, but like it's just it's an action set piece and it's fantastic.
It's pure action.
And it's super fun. Yeah. And it just delivers. I love how they drags the ship.
So we don't get the name of that moon, right? That moon's not named, I think, in the episode. It's just my friend's moon.
I don't think unless it's not named in the episode. I don't know. I'll have to wait for Wikipedia to load up.
I got it.
My computer to halt, but I don't. You got it. Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, it's Borgo Prime. Borgo Prime.
No, Borgo is
the moon.
Pirate.
The moon where they land.
The moon where they end up with Kim's moon. Yeah.
Kim's moon.
Yeah.
It's not named, so it might be one of those things where like it's in something.
No, it's not
but
named.
It's not
a gas giant and a moon, and that's it. Over Rocky Moon.
That was very interesting seeing the sort of gas giant in the background when they're on this planet.
I love that. And I have a music comment, which is like maybe the first time I said that.
I really want to dig into our thoughts on the music in this episode.
Especially in this scene, because I had to stop you to verify. Like that's a theremin. They use a theremin in that, and I'm like, that's the first time we've ever heard that in Star Wars, right? Like they don't that's
that is
old
Flash
school
Gordon
sci-fi stuff.
50s sci-fi.
Yeah, it's really interesting. I loved it. I kind of really loved it, but I was like, it really threw me off the first time.
Yeah, all I could think of, I was like,
it was a little wonky for me. I was like, this is a choice.
Yeah,
it was a choice.
Yeah,
it's bold,
but it's weird. It's a weird planet. It's the weirdest planet we've ever seen.
I was a little unexpected, and I was like, oh, but then I was like, oh, it's just like a 50s sci-fi poster. Like you just want like them walking in the doorway to be like a sci-fi poster with this fun alien
walking in front
and
of
the gas giant. The guy couldn't help it. Mick Giacchino is the score writer, and it's beautiful. I just thought it was like, I mean, it's almost taboo because it's like you don't want to like stray into Star Trek and you don't want to stray into other stuff, but like for a minute, like what was it, a 5-second stand of Theremin like on as they're doing this iconic like silhouettes.
I didn't really get the
it was more
feel of
it was more than that.
Yeah.
Anytime I clocked it the second time, anytime they're outside on the observatory moon, there's Theremin going. Yeah, but I like it that it's constrained to those moments where I'm like, clearly he wrote the rule in his head. Like, this is a weird alien.
I love that we have different opinions on this. This is great.
Yeah, the other thing I will say that my opinion changed the second time I watched it. The other thing I'll say is that like when they were escaping from Borgo Prime, it was very reminiscent of episode 2, the chase on Coruscant. Like it almost sounded like there were
sound design elements from the Zam Wessel chase in their
escape exactly. From the planet.
Yes,
it was
there
right
were actual
there.
sound effects,
so much like that. Yeah,
recycled sound effects. Yeah,
which a lot of it is like electric guitar. Because I remember, because I always think of that thing. Because it's the only time there's electric guitar in any score in a Star Wars. Was episode 2 during that chase scene. Yeah.
That happened. I heard
good
the same
for you
thing.
Guys.
It's a lot. The sound.
All right, good.
And the score.
Look at that! I actually had like 2 notes about music this week.
There's actually one of the best screams ever when the guy gets hit by the wire.
Oh yeah.
Like the hyperfoil. There's like it's 10,000 times better than the Wilhelm scream, and it should now be the iconic. Put that scream in every movie because it is so great. Really definitely listen back to that part because there's a great scream.
Should we talk Kim?
Yeah, let's talk Kim.
Let's talk Kim.
First, let's talk spelling. KHYMM.
Yeah, that's great. I love it because it's just like I'm like her
Star Wars
name is just Kim, and we talk about this. It's like we can spell our names in fun ways. Like you can always Star Warsify a name, but it's just funny. Her name's Kim, but again, it just reminds me of the tragedy subreddit, which is. Yeah, that's what it is. Just like it's just like, you had to name her Kim, and then you had to name it with 7 letters and a piece of punctuation.
I know it's really funny. We talked about this often off air because like we'll talk about names and stuff, and we are a subtitles always on household. It comes from having a toddler. Like we don't need them on anymore. We just always have them on because the biggest fear of a toddler parent is waking up your child after they've been asleep. It's the biggest horror ever. But so we always have them on. I live now with subtitles on, and so I often see subtitles before I hear it. And it's one of those things where you can't help but read it. And so I'm pretty sure I read the subtitle before I heard her name. So my brain never had a problem with hearing them say Kim, right? Because I always saw that. So I'm like, that's a Star Wars name. And then I had to stop and like, Kim. No, it's definitely, that's a very, and it took me a second, like, to go backwards on it. Yeah. Yeah.
It's safe to say this is sort of a observatory museum of sort, data archive.
I mean, it's, in Wikipedia, it's referred to as the Observatory Moon. That's the title of that. So, which is not like the name of the moon, but like, absolutely, it's an observatory.
And that's why there's no atmosphere and sort of clear, like no atmosphere, and you have all the stars.
That's the fun part. There is an atmosphere.
That's the weird thing. Yeah.
Yeah, there's like a light atmosphere.
You can breathe in it, and
for them to breathe.
There's enough gravity that Kim can fly around out there.
Which I love. That's total Star Wars. Like,
it
just
feels
don't
more
worry
like
about
Wes Anderson.
It's not sci-fi. This
feels
is
like
fantasy.
Wes Anderson.
Wait, are we going to talk about Kim? Like what?
Very Wes Anderson. Yeah. Good call. Never thought of it. So the observatory is super cool. That was like Carly's big note. Was like, I love that new alien, and I'm like,
Jenny's favorite character as well, but she's a bird girl.
We all loved it. I thought it was a really cool design too. It's not strictly like an owl humanoid. Nope. It's like it's kind of like it's almost like a reptilian owl chipmunk thing going on, where it's like
Carly was calling an owl cat. That was Carly's
great
terminology. Yeah.
But like here we get all this new lore, which added so many more layers to our thoughts about Pat Atten and what was going on there. She said suddenly we get this lore bomb that there were the jewels of the old Republic, and they were purposefully hidden. And there's 8, maybe 9, depending on what the graphic, if the center is just the center of the galaxy, or if there's a planet at the center of the galaxy, or what, because she has an ancient map, obviously.
I wonder if that's supposed to be like Coruscant, maybe like the center of the galaxy is Coruscant.
The other
with
thing
everything
she
else.
said long ago, all were destroyed.
Yeah.
Except for one.
Yeah, except one. Yeah.
And so I mean that raises so many important and fun questions. Why?
Well, then she explicitly says At-Aten is the one.
At-Aten is the one that was not destroyed. Yeah, and it's carried on in pirate shanties and kids' tales, and and for like weirdos like her, that are just like, no, it's real. And I don't know. I mean, can we just like backpedal a second? Just like, well, I mean, we can ask the question: how old? Like, how long has this planet been hidden? Because they do say Old Republic. That is used here, like from the Old Republic, which we've had some offline conversations. But I mean, for most Star Wars fans, the Old Republic is the Old Republic.
Is previous is even older than the High Republic, basically is how most of us, which makes sense because we talked about how they're kind of somewhat renaming the High Republic, all of the High Republic up to Episode 3 as like the Old Republic, but like there would be tales of a planet.
No, that's the High Republic,
right, Grant? Like you've talked about, like.
Oh no! I texted you guys out of just knee-jerk reaction to reading the most recent Siege of Jakku comics, and they say there's a world in there where it's like a world that was a peaceful world in the time of the Old Republic. I think they used terminology, and
they're being a bit loosey-goosey.
And so Old Republic is being dripped out now into the broader canon through comics and this show.
Yeah,
and we've never really heard the Old Republic before.
Really? No, this is kind of the first time they're starting to really.
It makes me think they're really opening up a door here because, and again, you have the Rakata name checked in Andor. Yep. You have certain elements of the Old Republic have been canonized, and it makes me think maybe the Old Republic is going to be featured in more things, especially after the Project Luminous and all the High Republic books sort of finish their cycle. Is the Old Republic up next? And
I would love that. I feel like you're right. I feel like this is kind of, Star Wars is not Marvel. Not everything has to be connected, but they are. We often see them introduce new concepts in a show and then build upon them in later shows, right, or later works. And it feels like this is what they're kind of doing, is getting casual fans like my wife or other people familiar with the terminology Old Republic, right? So I agree.
That's exciting to me.
And the Old Republic, it's almost like a tribute to the Old Republic MMO RPG video game that's been out there for the past 15 years or whatever. That's like essentially all about this sort of stuff. And you could even argue that there's sort of architecture and art design in that game that sort of echoes the sort of like space Modesto we get in on At-Aten. So it's like and it
matches that map, that ancient map that's pulled out. Like it's the same, and maybe that's the only reason we saw that fresco was because it's like really the same design on both, like the mural on the wall and then that map as well. There are figures there too. They're just like kneeling humanoids, and again the like luminous leader in the center of it, and all of that. But boy, now it's not just like why are they hidden, all that. It's like, wait, why? What were the jewels of the Republic? Why were they destroyed? How were they destroyed? That's the other big question I want to talk to you guys about.
That's the big question.
Because like that means there were planet killers in the Old Republic. The Death Star wasn't the first, and I think that's actually really kind of cool. We get in Expanded Universe a lot of sort of different variety of planet killers, and I don't know. I mean, it just would be like 10,000 years ago there were also planet killers. Like, this isn't a new thing that Palpatine was doing.
So because Kim does say that the other planets were destroyed, right?
Yeah,
all but
the word
one.
Destroyed. Yeah,
destroyed by what?
Destroyed by
That's
how?
The question. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, that's a very loose term, so it could be destroyed metaphorically, meaning that they were just kind of raided,
plundered,
and killed. Could have been destroyed by aerial bombardment, or there are planet killers out there. And like old EU was not shy about introducing multiple versions of planet killers. Like there's a long history in the old EU of planet killers. So
weren't there just Sith that could just like absorb the power?
Well, there's the Starforge, right?
The Starforge was I was thinking of, right, from the games, or from
it's a pretty sweet. I mean, like, I think if I remember right, it was like it just created endless starships that you could use to just destroy anything.
Something like that.
Pretty crazy.
I can't remember. It's been a while, but
but anyways, oh my gosh, fertile ground, like so fun. There's we got the "You're the map" quote in there, and I don't know the quip about KB. So KB is like really ahead of the game. Like she's sort of like she's behind, but she's catching up fast. And she's like, "Oh, we learned about Coruscant and Alderaan," and there was that great quote that's just like, "Whew, missed the war, did you?" So we know it predates Battle of Yavin for sure.
Right.
Yeah, and at least they're knowledge.
So we don't think the great work that they initially spoke about is a sort of comment on the High Republic notion of the great work and sort of
I think it's totally
initiative.
I'm still totally in on that. That could be a thing, but I think it could go even before it. Maybe Lena So, who created the great works in the High Republic, like maybe she got that idea from someplace earlier.
When did this planet go into isolation?
I don't know.
That's the question. But I will say
but it would have to be around for the Great Work Initiative and stuff like that.
Well, I mean, maybe, or it's just a coincidence, or just using similar terminology, parallel things.
That's what I'm thinking. I'm thinking now it's a coincidence. I'm thinking now it was, I'm thinking now it was just sort of a ploy that, like, for us to think High Republic, but we're going to go even further back.
A misdirect.
Thanks, Guy, for teasing me up for. In my experience, there's no such thing as coincidence.
Well, there you go. Which is valid as well. So the other thing to talk about is like the flavor of droids we're getting in this episode, in this show, are weird. Like the droids on Alderaan and Smee are not our typical droids that we see
other than
throughout.
The battle droid,
we've noticed throughout the galaxy.
There.
Yeah, well, no, in that
actually we recognize all of those
because
droids,
those are
that's okay. Yeah.
Those are all, but I just mean the droids on Alderaan and Smee are not our typical droids. I love that's starting to lead me to think about like this looks closer to like the Old Republic HK-47 droids and these weird, very boxy.
I forgot
droids,
they canonized the
like
HK-47s too. In Ahsoka. Yeah.
So I'm also with you. I think they might have been isolated for a long time.
Was there like a droid war at something? Like, wasn't there like, weren't droids getting too smart at one point, and then they decided to like dumb them down? Am I dreaming that?
That's like you're in Doom world now.
No. I mean, I am watching that, but no, in Star Wars, like, wasn't like in ancient history there was something where they were like, droids were doing everything, and we're like, no, we gotta pipe down on our droid intelligence.
That's fascinating.
I could be dreaming that.
No, but I think they could recanonize the Starforge and be like it's a kind of droid intelligence thing that prints ships and prints droids, and then this planet is now controlled by it, and it's just an old planet killer that's just sitting there in space, and it's all rickety, and like Thrawn could go explore it. You know what I mean? Like
there could be a war between the two.
Where do you want to put Thrawn? You want to put Thrawn in something that's like a Death Star, right, or something? It's a Chimera. I guess the Chimera.
Yeah, you want to give him something that balances out his.
I think if you give Thrawn a planet killer, we're all dead. Or like he's Emperor. Like he can take he's like the MacGyver of the the Imperial fleet. Like any sort of tactical advantage he can squeeze out of one of his weapons, he will use. Like the way he uses buzz droids. Like he takes. So if you give him something with the capability of a planet killer, he'll turn it into a jackknife or like a can opener or something.
I just love the idea of a planet killer that's been around for hundreds of thousands of years and is just sitting there somewhere, and it's like it's because it had destroyed everything around it. It's essentially just unfound.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Super cool.
Yeah. So all right, it's time. Why have you been prattling on, Adam, and calling Jad Nanawood Crimson Jack? Why have you referred?
Because
to that?
I think that's his true identity. That's as of right now. I think that's who he is in his heart. I feel like he's going to become the other, like, I can't say also because I can't say his real freaking name. Yes, I think he's going to become that as the series goes on. But I think as of right now, we're dealing with Crimson Jack. I feel like that's how he sees himself, and like he seems to be presenting himself in a certain way. Like I can't explain it. Like you can watch him acting in the show, and I know that Clive Owen is
Jude Law.
Jude Law.
Jude Law. I get Jude Law and Clive Owen mixed up all the time. I've been really good.
Dashing British gentleman.
Okay.
Yeah. They came out at the same time. They both were like going to be Bond, and then they weren't.
I love your mind.
But Jude Law, I feel like Jude Law is a better actor than that, and I feel like you can see him acting in this episode, if that makes sense. Like I feel like you can see the character acting, and that's why I'm like, no, he's Crimson Jack trying not to be Crimson Jack in front of these kids. And there's a moment when he's talking to Kim where he's like, she's like, you're not going to kill me in front of the kids.
So she knows his heart.
There's a brilliant, he knows his heart. Like he knows he's a scoundrel, but not like Han Solo is a scoundrel. And you see him kind of look at her going like, yeah, like you almost see him go, oh, like, you know me too well. So,
but I will like,
that's kind of
throw you into a pile of books.
Yeah, I will. Which I love that.
Go
I love
full,
that.
They were like iPads. Those like hefty iPads that they have in Star Wars. Well, so let me ask you, what's the difference between Crimson Jack and Captain Silvo?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I don't quite know. I feel like Captain Silvo is another way he was acting at the beginning of the series. Like I feel like he wasn't quite like, I don't know how I'm saying this. I'm not quite sure how I'm saying this. I feel like he had taken on that role, but he doesn't seem very successful in it. And it feels like he's not evil enough to be Captain Silvo, right? I feel like he's a dashing scoundrel, and that's why Crimson Jack is the name of a dashing scoundrel, and Captain Silvo is the name of a true evil pirate, a Blackbeard or what have you. And he's just not that person, and he's not a Jedi yet. So I feel like he's in between these identities.
Yeah, I mean, I like that. To me, I read it as sort of like, listen, he's as in his journey, his lonely journey through knowing nothing but being a scoundrel. He's taken on many personas, but like to the kids, he reveals his true self, and obviously that's aided by all the other information around it that says his name is Jad Wood. So like that's his real name. But you're like, I get what you're saying. Like his real persona.
I think that is. I agree. I think that is his real. Yeah. Like I agree. I think that his given name.
Yeah, you're saying his real personality is Crimson Jack. I mean, that's how the
right now
New Republic knows him, right? When she's like, it's him, it's Crimson Jack, and like whoever Kim's contact was with, the New Republic was like, we know who you're talking about, Captain Jack.
His pirate moniker could be like Jack Silvo, where some pirates call him Captain Silvo, and then Kim calls
Crimson
him
Jack
Crimson
Silvo
Jack,
or something, maybe.
Yeah, like that's
it could be one's a nickname, and exactly, and I feel like that's true. I will say, like, the other thing I want to talk about is we talked about last episode where it's just like, from episode 1 we're like, well, that's clearly Jude Law, and I'm glad that they're not hiding that, right? Where episode 3 was like a reveal. They're just like, we all knew you knew that. You're not dumb, you're smart people. We don't need
the pirate was like, you always have a mad scheme in your head, and I was like, oh, so he's always scheming. He's definitely a scoundrel character, and all these he does nefarious, pirate sort of things around other pirates, and they observe that, and so he's definitely a scoundrel type at this point.
Yeah,
I think what you said earlier, Adam, was right. I think it's like, I think when he said "I'm Jad Nanawood" to these kids, when he said that, there was the inflection on those words and how he said it was actually just felt like a little bit more sentimental than like other moments.
He's like recalling that he hasn't used that name
Yeah, he's sort of like sarcastic with the kids after that, and I feel like when he says that, it's a little different. I love the idea of him being this Crimson Jack scoundrel for the beginning of the show, and then him unlocking this past that maybe he had, where he was Jod Nanawud, and it's this. You kind of see his heart. Maybe open that up a little bit.
I mean, it's got to be right. It's a kid show, not a kid show, but it's a show with kids. That's very like whatever, and that's. Like, you can't have him, like, the same reason why you have to have him use the Force. You can't have the show be this person, be cynical and mean to these kids for the next 5 episodes, or 5 episodes, and then it ends with him not, the arc has to be that he becomes a good person.
It has to.
Like, it just has to be in the show.
Which will be a fun adventure to get there.
I'm happy to watch it.
Can I do a little side quest here? Because when I heard Crimson Jack, the first thing I thought of was the Crimson Corsair, which we see in episode 7, Force Awakens. Yeah. He is a famous pirate that's hanging out at Maz Kanata's castle. And so I went back to be like, because I really thought that, Crimson Jack, like his helmet really resembled the Crimson Corsair's helmet. I don't know if you guys got any of those vibes as well, but where it goes out really like thin on the sides. Yeah. And then when it was like, oh, he's the Crimson, he's Crimson Jack, I was like, oh, is he related to Crimson Corsair? But I just did some quick research on him, and apparently there's some story specifically about the Crimson Corsair that we have not read. Oh no, we did read this.
It was way back, right? It's in like a, what is it? I remember reading it.
Force Awakens novelization, junior novel, graphic novel. It's Tales of Villainy, The Crimson Corsair and the Crime Lords of the Barren Rim, Star Wars Adventures 2020. Woof. We missed that.
Huh. I must have read it, but there's so many at that point.
Yeah, I mean, it is actually kind of ringing a bell now that I'm thinking about it. But anyways, the one last factoid I want to give to you is that the Crimson Corsair, that is a Kaleesh design helmet, which is the same people as General Grievous.
General Grievous.
Yeah, I will say we have Travis is joining us on chat, and he just mentioned that there's apparently Crimson Corsair and the Lost Treasures of Count Dooku from the Aliens anthology, which that sounds vaguely familiar too, right? Like the Aliens. Yeah, so that reminds me. I also want to mention that Travis has my back. Earlier, he mentioned that another possibility is that basically the planet was taken for wreckage by Palpatine, and it's an early First Order colony on Wild.
Yeah, that was
my theory from last week. Yeah. I don't know if you were on this earlier, Travis, but I have now abandoned that, and I have my new theory of the week. But we'll see.
Wait, what's the new theory?
My new theory is that's a droid planet.
Wizard of Oz, but the wizard is a droid, etc. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I love that because it's so ironic. It's like data analysts, like very
we're all
binary
like,
sort of
can't leave and see if there's other things, and they're all just crunching numbers for the.
It's like funny,
and I just want to add, Travis, thank you very much for listening. We appreciate that. And I just want to say to Adam, who is our one point of contact with all of the chat, that it's interesting that you select the stuff that supports your comments. That's interesting.
I don't know. I just people seem to see my way. I don't know. What are you gonna do?
I like it. I like to see it.
What are you gonna do?
No, I think that's a great theory. I think it's probably right, given the Crimson Jack line we get to the kids about SM-33, which is don't trust droids.
Yeah. I mean, can we just stop? Can we just call him Smee? Can we all just keep calling him Smee? Why are we calling him SM-33?
Yeah,
that's what they call him in the show, but it's Smee.
It's 33. I call him different things all the time.
Smee, the first mate. Fantastic.
They're from somewhere.
I love that I love it's such a new comedy jokey thing, but I love that he just says they're definitely from somewhere and then leaves and comes back a second later from somewhere.
That was great.
Like it made me chuckle. I'm like, it's such an easy joke, but I'm like, I don't know.
It worked. It got me.
Yeah, I'm in for that. That was a great interaction, and I actually I could just watch Jude Law look for outfits in a former captain's quarters, probably for like an hour and a half.
That scene where he looks at the boot and sees if the boot is his side, and then takes the scimitar or the whatever out of the person is the most piratey thing. Like that just gave whoever shot that was like, it was such a great pirate moment. Like it feels like it'd be out of a pirate movie. I'm just like that's what you do, right? As you're a pirate, you just walk around and see what can I plunder, what can I take.
Yes, loot.
Yeah. And I have to say, I mean, I love David Lowery, but I thought he did a great job with this episode. I loved this episode. I wanted another 2 hours of this episode, and we're ultimately going to get it. But I don't think we're going to really feel much difference between the directors on all of these things. I think the episodes are going to be great. I don't know if it's the writing or whatever, but I mean, you got to give credit to Lowery for that, right? Like it just like set up the scene, and it was whimsical and fun.
Yeah, it's super consistent between the first 3 episodes. I mean, we've only had 2 directors, but like they are definitely setting a house style that everyone seems to be following. It'll be interesting because like we've had other voices take over before, right? Where I think of like season 1 of The Mandalorian, and we get Taika does the season finale, right? Taika Waititi, and there's a lot of very Taika stuff in that episode, which I enjoy. But like there's a moment. The Scout Troopers is like very like, oh, you're doing your Taika thing. And so very interesting to see when we get the Daniels doing their thing in a couple episodes. Like, what is that going to look like?
Does anyone know who we have next?
Yeah.
The rules?
Do we think these coordinates are going to lead them to At-Atin, or is it going to be some other,
I think we got
Outer Rim world where there's...
Not getting there yet.
I think she has too little to go on, but it'll be a breadcrumb that leads them somewhere else. But yeah, I think it's too little to go on.
Could be one of the destroyed of the worlds, the great treasure worlds. It could be like one of the other ones, the destroyed ones.
That'd be super interesting, right? To go to one of the other planets and see,
to understand what the barrier is, and to see maybe all that stuff destroyed, but at least evidence of what the barrier is and what that technology is before we actually get all the mystery unveiled.
So to pull us back for a second to I noticed a couple of things which I think is really interesting. So next week is the Daniels, so we'll have that question answered. So episodes 1, 2, 3, 4, 7, and 8 are written by Christopher Ford and John Watts. Here's what's interesting: episodes 5 and 6 are written by Mung-Jo Wesner. Apologies if I mispronounced your name, but that's interesting. There's 2 episodes
back to back in the middle of the series,
back to back, that are written by another person. Which I'm like, are we gonna get like a weird different flavor of like, we're gonna go over here for a second and check something out? Because I feel like when that's happened in, like, I guess we've seen that in Mando, right? Like we've had other people write it, but I'm just that's super
which means they're probably going to
anyway.
Go somewhere. They're going to get stuck in some other like place and go deeper down the rabbit hole, right? And like that's where they'll be at in their darkest depths. Like, they're probably just going to go someplace weird. I mean,
because
we are early days, man. Episode 3 of 8.
It is. Who knows? We got 5 more to go, and this is a great setup because it almost feels like, well, this show could, like, theoretically, this could be the penultimate episode of the season, right? Like, it could be like, you're right, if they went back to that and end the story, they go back.
4 episodes, feature film, but like there it is, right there, bang, bang, bang.
Yeah, but clearly they've got to go somewhere else, or something else has to happen. Yeah. I always wonder if they do go to At-Atin in episode 4, and then we get split away for episodes 5 and 6, and then come back and something else happens in 7 and 8. I don't know. Yeah.
Wild.
Yeah.
Wild.
Well, I mean, the Daniels are just masters of sort of trick photography and surrealism, and I'm hoping we get some wacky, like,
is this gonna get lost in hyperspace
situation? Yeah.
This is like a weird hyperspace episode where they get lost in hyperspace and something weird happens to them. Like I'm trying to think what the Daniels are gonna do. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. A lot of fun ways to go there. And now I'm looking down the line. I'm checking out. Oh, so you said 5 and 6, right? Okay. Wild. All right.
Yeah.
Yeah. 5 directors.
I want to get another.
Okay. Sorry.
I want to mention that Travis said, and I just want to get your thoughts on this because I think it's really interesting. He said like Jude Law has best captured the acting style of the original trilogy of any of the new shows. What are your thoughts on that? I agree with that.
I think
what do you think?
I think
that's
he's
a good observation.
Bad Santa version of Obi-Wan Kenobi.
Yeah. Like he's doing the thing where he's like he's like bordering on camp, but not actually getting into camp, right? Which reminds me of the original trilogy. Like it's a bit of theatrical acting, but really there's more going on.
Yeah, I mean,
it's interesting. Yeah,
he's definitely channeling the original trilogy because I listened to him in interviews, and he's like, he loved the the original trilogy and growing up with Star Wars and knowing what it means to kids and stuff like that. And I think he was like, oh, I just want to be like as big as a Han Solo on screen here, and I definitely feel like Jude Law by way of Han Solo is happening a lot of the time.
Yeah, I mean, I just feel like, but for a couple of decisions, Jude Law could have been Obi-Wan Kenobi. Like that's kind of the vibe I got. But he took a different.
Yeah, that's a good point.
But like the dialect is the same, and he's a leader. He's bringing people together. He does have a kind of like. There's a lot of elements there that I think are good.
Yeah, and he and Ewan McGregor must be the same age, right? So that's an interesting thing. Is I wonder if he was even in consideration.
Yeah, I think he'd be younger than Obi-Wan, right, at this point, because Obi-Wan, granted, the ravages of Tatooine made him look much, much older, but still, I think he's probably at least 10 years younger than what Obi-Wan would be.
He's but in terms of acting, in terms of actor, he's 2 years younger than Ewan McGregor. Yeah. So like he could have been. I'm guessing if they're searching,
he might have been one of the people
for actually playing Obi-Wan in the prequels. I wonder, because at that time he and Ewan were about on the same level.
Yeah. He's got a nice like regal British accent too. He doesn't talk like the sort of Cockney pirate, accent of the other sort of aliens. It's interesting. He seems like a different breed of pirate altogether. Spiritual, right? Like talking about the Force a lot.
Yeah, I love it. And I will say, as a follically challenged man, I appreciate that he does not he's not put on a wig or has had hair transplants. Like he's massively losing his hair.
And and like you think a beard would be another thing they'd go for in this show, given that he's a pirate and I don't know, like more facial hair or a beard of some kind, but and he is your sort of Blackbeard character, and so it's like it's funny that he doesn't. He's just kind of like he just looks like your everyday scoundrel character if you were to draw sort of what kind of character he is.
So I have some facts as far as like I just Googled like who else auditioned for Obi-Wan, and a couple of these people are for the original Obi-Wan. I mean. That's one of them, right? That was right. Peter Cushing tried out for Obi-Wan too, actually, which is ultimately became Moff Tarkin. But there's some other names. Hugh Jackman tried out. Kenneth Branagh and Joseph Fine.
Kenneth Branagh.
Fiennes. Okay, I can see that might be the only one. Joseph Fiennes might be the only one. I'm like, I could.
Yeah, I assume he's related to Ray Fine. Spelled Tim Roth, which is wild.
Interesting.
Wild. Interesting. I kind of need to see that now. I need to see the prequels with Tim Roth.
I don't know how that rat face turns into
be kind to Mr.
Roth. No, I love him. He's a great actor. He's got a rat face. Wow. It's fine. He uses it. He knows it. He's aware. It's fine. No, you don't have a rat face.
Travis, do I have a rat face?
He'd be a great Palpatine.
I
don't. I mean, that's
interesting, but you're right. Like it could have been like Jude Law would have been at the height of his powers then, but he was probably too pretty back then to play.
He was. I mean, that's
he's still
so.
Too
Jude Law talks about that a lot. Like he did not want to be in the things he was in because and a lot of it was that he was well too conventionally attractive. And then, if you've ever watched Road to Perdition, which is a movie that I don't think is very good, but makes me cry every time I watch it. I think it's good. Good. But I guess here's my thing. Is my emotional response to that movie does not seem to be in par with where I think that movie is. But like it kills me every time. Like literally weeping. But like that's a moment where Jude Law was like, "Oh, ugly me up." Right? And he does that is Jude Law, right? He's the photographer in it. Like he's the assassin. He's so good in that.
So you're like, "Can't stay away from him."
That's the moment. I know, right? But that's the moment he realized, "Oh, I'm a character actor. I'm not a leading like man," and I think that's where Jude Law was like found his moment.
I think it's a lot of fun to do those sort of roles for sure. But I'm excited to see where he goes with the role. As far as like him being the closest to any of the acting we saw in the original trilogy. I mean, yeah, if you're saying Obi-Wan is the comparison, yeah, there's definitely some Obi-Wan there.
Mostly because of the accent.
But I
don't
know. I mean, like,
I was like, all right.
Oh, okay, yeah. The accent.
But he does
definitely
some of the
Sir Alec
movements and
it.
like the flip of the
Oh,
hood.
yeah.
Like he does, he channels a little bit, and for sure, yeah. But I think that's also why you get someone like Jude Law, because Jude Law has proven over the past 20 years he can play leading man charm, he can play old and wise, and he can play a sociopath. Like he can play everything you need him to play in this show. Yeah.
Yeah, I was thinking about the outfits a little bit because, like, when you meet him, he's very much Jedi robes, and then he immediately changes back into captain attire, and I just wonder if there's more to that. But but it's like, oh, these are the two flavors of. Yeah, I mean, we talked about this at the beginning, but I don't know. I think there's something there.
It's fun to have a scoundrel in charge of a ship and like. Sort of like navigating the galaxy again. Like I don't think we've had that in Star Wars for a long time, and that's actually just a great like vibe.
Yeah,
it's like they're gonna find all these workarounds. They're gonna break the fuel cable and go into hyperspace. They're gonna like mess with a bunch of doodads on the ship and sort of like customize it and immediately understand there's different gunner seats and weapon configurations that they can act on and use. It's like it's so cool. Like it's cool to see a scoundrel like a Han character with the Millennium Falcon.
Yeah, so
it's so cool. I love that vibe.
Let me ask you a question that just really thought of. Apart from Solo, when have we had a main character, a scoundrel as a main character in anything?
They tried to force Poe as a scoundrel in like the last.
Yeah, I know a little bit, but he's not, because he's also just part of the. He's like a general. He doesn't count. Sorry, no, you're part of the establishment.
They backfilled with that book. Was it John Jackson Miller? I don't know.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, no, Poe is not.
No, it was our guy Daniel Jose Older. Did he write that? Sorry. Anyways, irregardless.
Is it Free Fall? Whatever it's called. I can't remember.
Alex Winter. I don't know.
I think it is. Yeah. I think it was.
I just remember it was a
comic
writing but that wrote this novel.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's just like, no, you can't just be like, oh, he was a scoundrel.
Right, like
also.
none of the. I'm trying to think. Like
we never saw it.
Yeah. Also, he's a spice runner and yada yada.
Yeah. So maybe that's the secret sauce of Star Wars, is have a really charismatic scoundrel character that's like.
Yeah,
near the top of the ensemble, or at least helping guide the ensemble. So that's fun.
For me, it was fun to just be like, he was clearly a captain of a successful captainship. We got that guy. His name's Benjen, I think, or Benjo, that he meets in the droid, workshop. That was like, you're the best captain I've ever had.
It was like Denjar Prennick or something.
Oh, was that Denjar? I thought it was there's a Ben something in there that
the droid guy,
the Ishitib.
Yeah.
The Ishitib? Denjar Prennick?
Okay, Denjar Prennick. Yeah. But so anyways, he was just saying, like, going on about what a great captain he was. So to get that, like, salted pirate captain helping out kids and being like, all right, I can train you up. I can train anybody and turn you into a, effective, pirate crew. And I'm excited to see where that goes too. I think we're going to get more of that.
I think so too. And like, I'm like, go back to like I'm thinking of Scoundrel. Like maybe you could say DJ was, but like he wasn't in it very long. So
he's a slicer. He's different.
But like he's a slicer. Yeah. Travis made the point like you can think of like maybe Rogue One and Andor might be the closest we've gotten to, which they kind of are. I mean, they work for the New Republic, but they are scoundrel adjacent. I think that's an interesting point, especially with like Rogue One.
Well, like who in
there's almost too much of a mission
more like
there, though.
Revolutionaries.
Yeah, I would put them in the revolutionaries.
But they're not your clean cut rebels. But they're not like clean cut. Like
they're
rebels,
salty
right?
and dirty,
So.
but like I feel like they are, and as I'm sure will be elucidated in season 2 of Andor, it's like they're gonna go down that rebel manifesto, path.
Yeah,
and be like this is what it means to be a rebel. I think it's very different from a scoundrel.
Yeah. But I think it's gonna be similar to what we see in this and in what we saw in the original trilogy of like Han being like, yes, I'm a scoundrel, but this is what it is to be a rebel, right? This is what it is to be part of the establishment. I think same thing with Crimson Jack or whatever we're calling him, is like this is gonna be his realization of this is what it is to be a mentor, this is what it is to be a Jedi or to be a hero, right? Yeah.
Cool guys. I think we should probably call it there, man. There's going to be so much more we talk about. I can't believe we just talked for an hour and a half about a 30-minute episode.
Always.
It's like, it's just subtle. You know, like before this podcast, like I wasn't thinking Wizard of Oz at all. And it's like, it's so there, but it's so not there at the same time. Like, it's just a subtle nod to like, yeah, these are tried and true tropes that we're going to just sort of like smush in here. And it like, you know, it's for me, it's tough to look past the starships and the galaxies and the space stations and like, and not just see anything but Star Wars. And, you know, obviously, you know, they've been drawing off Wizard of Oz. Everyone's been drawing off Wizard of Oz since the 50s, right? So, yeah, pretty cool stuff. So, yeah, fun episodes, man. I can't wait to see what happens next. It's like, are they gonna, like, you know, they could still open a couple more mystery boxes, at least one next episode, and then you know, and then we'll start solving things. But wild. Any last words, gentlemen? What did we forget to talk about? Oh, there is one thing that we forgot to talk about. It was from last week. We had stopped recording, and then we realized that Jude Law played Captain Hook in Peter Pan and Wendy. From a movie that came out last year, directed by the director of this episode and the previous episode, David Lau.
Yeah, right? Like, yeah, that's a good thing. Another random piece of information I found out.
Sure bet right there.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Gonna get the pirate theme going.
Yeah. The Teak from the last episode that we talked about. Do you know who voiced the Teak?
No.
Please tell me.
The Teak is the driver of the taxi who came from the Battle of Endor movie.
Yeah. Like my favorite character in episode 2. Yes.
Yeah. Sam
Witwer.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah. Star Wars royalty or Star Wars animated.
And he
royalty,
famously voiced.
Yeah. And
I thought of you, Adam, with the droid workshop.
Maul. Yeah.
Like waking up the droids in the droid workshop. I was dying. Like the prince is in danger. I must save the prince.
Did you guys get who voiced them?
Yeah.
No.
I bet it's.
I don't know.
If you give me 30 seconds, I can find it.
Yeah, and the other thing that happened in that, like, where I was like, I watched it with Carly because like I love he turns on a B1 battle droid. And
is that what he said?
I love the thing.
Did we
win? Yeah, did we win?
Oh, that is so good.
Did we win and blows up?
That's what he says. And like, I love the fact that even got a laugh out of Carly. So I'm like, all right, that's a good joke. Where Carly does not dine on the prequels, and she was even just like, that's a good joke. Like, that's a great. Did we win?
I didn't see because I didn't have the things on. I didn't see what he said, so that is fantastic.
Yeah, it's very hidden, but that's what he says. I don't see
voice
any. Yeah, I'm looking at as voices yet. I'm sure it's people. Like, it's going to be someone, right?
They're going to because they're such iconic.
Like, as of right now, it's going to be next week. Similar, like because last week it didn't come out that same Whitworth did the voice of Teak. It came out later this week.
And so I took a picture of like the voice credits at the end, and it's like Numa Marie Gary Beef is the name of someone. So there's a Benjar Pranik.
Yeah, Beef is a person.
It's a Benjar Pranik.
I think I had that for
lunch.
Grant,
Benjar Pranik?
Yeah.
Is that the name?
Oh, it's not Denjar, it's Benjar?
Yeah. That's what I was thinking.
That's Alfred
Molina.
Alfred
Benjar
Molina.
Pranik?
Whoa, that's Alfred Molina?
Alfred Molina?
Yeah.
Whoa. As the E.T.
Yeah.
Yeah, I totally makes sense
That's
now. I'm thinking back to
amazing.
that. Like, that's absolutely Dr. Octopus.
Yeah.
And what's
He's
his name
he has a lot of fun lines too.
He does.
And the one of the X-Wing commanders is named. I guess the guy who showed his face. That's Commander Kent. Andy Powers.
Andy Powers. Yeah.
But I'd love. So there had to be like named names for those. There's got to be like real actors.
I'm sure. We'll find out.
Like call signs.
This is the second week in a row that Carly said, "Is that Or So she forgot from last week, and so I wasn't even going to get 3 weeks in a row of her going, "Is that Urkel again?" Yeah.
Man. Okay. Yep. Look. No, there's locations. Crazy. Wow. Why are there all these? Oh my gosh! I have a
They're
list
all mentioned
on the computer screen of all the like the. Oh my gosh! Of all the worlds. In Arabish on the computer screen.
Oh, of all the.
Oh my gosh.
Oh, Oh, just like when they're looking at but not it's not the name of the treasures.
No,
right?
it's not. I don't. Well, there might be in there.
Oh, look at that! I see in Arabish, mentioned Arabish on computer screen. Yeah, I see the same
which
thing
I'm
you're
not
seeing.
going to list them
That's
all.
wild.
There's nothing really.
There's so many though.
Station.
Yeah.
Like there's places I want to go though for real.
There's like at least 30 of them.
Observatory Moon. So it's written as Observatory Moon. So okay, I guess that's that.
Yeah.
The Coruscant, Terminus Ubardia. I mean, there's a Skako in there.
Skako Minor. Yeah.
Darknell.
Iradu, which is awesome. Which is Tarkin's home planet.
Tarkin's homeworld.
But
Bogdan.
Oh, nice.
Right?
Bogdan.
Isn't Bogdan from
Jedi?
From Jedi,
Survivor?
Jedi Survivor or Jedi Hidden, whatever the first one is, right?
The first one.
Is it the first one? Yeah.
Hitting.
No, Bogdan's actually that's a line that's Django says it to Obi-Wan where he goes, I did a mission on the moons of Bogdan. I met a Darth Tyrannus on the moon of Bogdan.
Darth Tyrannus on the moon of Bogdan. Thank you. I'm like, I knew that's a Star Wars quote and I could not place it. There you go. Love it.
Met a man named Tyrannus.
Yeah, so I'm finally on the cast listings and there's nothing for any droid other than
I didn't see anything there, but it'll come out this week, I'm sure.
That Imperial suit
who's like
droid could
unidentified RA7 protocol droid. That's one of them.
Yes, protocol droid. The Prince, I will help you, Prince.
And there's no information on them.
No, right. I will say the other thing I liked a lot, if we're talking about like jokes, is that Smee did not repeat himself as much in this episode. There wasn't a lot of like the quick repeating. The only time I caught him do it is when he says, "I don't need to repeat myself," which I was like, "That's it. There you go." When he's like stabbing him in the chest, or he's poking him in the chest. Yeah.
Yeah, it looked like it really hurt too. Wow. Mm-hmm. I was like, "Ow!" Being prodded.
I love that droid design. It's so weird.
I really like it.
So unique, and just the way it can stand tall and then like immediately like slunches. It feels like me.
He's intimidating.
I'm hunched over half the time, and after
to me, it's like at once he used to always stand tall and was like used to first made a ship and was like an intimidator. And then, and it's just over time, he's just like, no, I don't have the hydraulics to sort of do that unless called upon.
Yeah.
And it's, just adds to that character.
Takes too much power to stand up straight.
Yeah.
Boy, do I relate.
Yeah, I get you there, Smee. You and me, buddy. And I mean, you're just talking about that scene where he's poking him in the chest, and it's just like so subtle, but it's like after Smee walks away, he rubs his chest like, ow, that hurt. And then he's like, oh, he just like smells his shirt. And he's like, which leads to him changing his clothes. I don't know. It's subtle, but it's just like that's the world building stuff. Like I would much rather have that than like a fast paced like exposition.
Well, it reminds me of the original trilogy and actually all Star Wars movies where it's just like you're benefited from multiple viewings. Like you're not going to notice that stuff a ton, but there's a little bit of everything going on in every scene that like the second or third time you watch it, there's like a nice little like, oh, that's cute that they did that. I didn't catch that the first 4 times I watched it.
That's why this series makes me so happy. It's any series really does because I always watch everything twice, and the second time I get my face blown off by like crazy stuff that I missed the first time.
This is going to be the series where I know I used to do that a lot, and then I had a kid. But I'm going to make sure to watch the episodes twice before doing this because I've got so much more out of the second viewing. I like
to just have like an experience as a person watching Star Wars the first time, and then I like to take notes the second time. Mm-hmm. Anyways, that's 2 Inside Baseball.
Yeah, similar.
Yeah.
Great pod, guys. This is really fun to talk about all this. Anything more? Did I cut you off, Grant? You got some more to say?
No. I was going to say... I thought this episode was fantastic. There was just like some structural things in the episode that I just thought were a little bit of just felt like it was a little bit like fat on the bone where it could have just kind of streamlined the plot a little bit where it's like he has to go back to get Smee and then
that felt weird to me as well.
Kim recovers and talks to KB for a second before KB reluctantly goes to join Captain Jack.
That was weird. Yep. So you and I hit the same
structural
thing.
Beats in there where I was like, oh, these are kind of strange. That you could have just streamlined
down
it.
The episode.
More peril. They have to get out of Kim's observatory quicker, and you're getting Smee on the way out sort of situation.
Right, and she could have immediately gone over to see if she was okay, and then run out slightly after them. But it felt a little too long. I agree. It's like for an episode that was like I think only 39 minutes with credits, it felt long, and I think not long, but it felt like longer than I was expecting. And I think you're right, Grant. I think it's those two things I noticed at the same time. I'm like, wait, we're going back?
I didn't need less time. You could have maybe all that stuff just maybe in a linear fashion.
It slowed it down a little bit, I feel like.
Yeah, so it's just like when it comes to like rewatching this episode, I'll rewatch it a couple more times, but it's like I'm probably going to revisit 2 a lot so far, and 1 definitely a lot. But 3 is just this one. Out of the 3 we've gotten so far, I think like 2 is probably my favorite. Obviously, 1 and 2 kind of work together as a two-hander set. That are both just brilliant, honestly. And again, I mean, it's like it's not to say I don't like this episode. I thought it was fantastic. It was just more of like just looking at the pacing and structure of what's going on. Storytelling,
100%.
I mean, this episode definitely had some clunky bits.
I thought that was like really important exposition, where it was like they didn't follow him, but like. I think it speaks to his character, and at the same time the kids are like, should we just ditch this guy and leave? And they're having like a long debate that whole time. It's just like, we got to get out of here because they're 2v2, and
it does split them up and allow them to have conversations.
They're at least smart enough to be wary of this guy, and but it shows that like, hey, he stuck to his word. I mean, he went right into the mouth of the beast. And was like, at this point, the alarm is set. Everyone's looking for him, and he still sneaks in there. And he's like, "Which droid are you?" And he is able to escape again on his own. Like it.
I mean, that's a good point, because he could have either just said no, we're going, and kidnapped them and hope they could save them, or he could have very easily gone back, pretend to have gone back, come back and said nope, he was dismantled, or I couldn't find him. Right. I guess where I am kind of bumping up against it is. Feels weird to me that the kids didn't at some point before they got there say, hey, what about Smee?
Right.
Like that's I guess where I kind of was it just it seems weird, right? Like
I get that. I think it would just be like, we're doing a rescue and then we have to do another rescue right after the rescue we rescued, and it's like, why? Like that doesn't do anything but sort of like getting them back and then being like, we were just so panicked to get out of there, we forgot Smee, we need him too, and, because kids. Reasons, whatever. And then you have that really kind of interesting moment where they get to contemplate, like, do we even want to go anywhere with this guy? Like,
and I like that. Yeah.
You're right. Yeah. There's some fun character development there with just their relations to Jod and Nawood and what they feel thus far, and you do get sort of that examination. It doesn't mean you couldn't have done something extremely, interesting in terms of them branching out as they're escaping, but in tandem. He goes no room. They're on like the plastic barge, and maybe they like could close the door on him in the plastic barge, and highlight the situation of like Fern being like, I could just close this door on Jod and Nawood right now, and like there's a lot you could do there that I think like is similar to all the sort of growth that you're talking about that doesn't involve them like going somewhere and then going back. Like I always like to burn the house down behind the characters and a story, like keep them moving. It was funny that he had to. It was actually just comedic. It was almost slapstick.
It was.
It was very much. I got to go back and get this droid. Not only do I have to get this droid, he's extremely heavy and he's not like mobile at this point. I have to use a wheelbarrow and just wheelbarrow him out of the pirate stronghold essentially, and and then the way he gets to the ship is almost like a comical like two-shot. He's in a plastic barge and then he's on the ship bugging the thing. He's like, we gotta go. It was just like, it was funny. It was
that the way they cut where you don't actually see what he does to the Ishitin, like we don't see that at all, right? Like there's nothing. It's just like the next thing we see him, he's blasting his way out, which I appreciate.
Not to be undersold, like I loved the design of the like ferryman ship, the like dinghy. The space dinghy, and it was like clearly can only be piloted by those tiny like creatures, but he's
leaning over.
I mean, like that alone, like him being like probably working the foot pedals with his like left hand and like the joystick with his right and trying to like do the thing. I don't know. It was
funny.
It was so in Galaxy. It's just like no, I'm existing in this world now, and that just makes me feel great and feel deeper into the galaxy far, far away.
That was cool. And then my other thing was Kim sort of recovering at the end. I was like, and then talking to KB, I was like, okay, this is safety right here. I'm sure Kim can get you guys back. She's also an astrogator. Yeah. Like, she's gonna be able to find the planet. Like, you're in the best spot you can possibly be. But just tells us that they're not knowledgeable of X-wings and the symbol of an X-wing in the Republic. And so that's fascinating to me, honestly. It just means they don't know the story of the Galactic Civil War.
I guess that's the question I have. Is so at the very beginning, let's go all the way back and do it again. Let's go all the way back to the beginning of this episode again. No, but for a
let's
second,
run it back. Let's play two.
At the very beginning, what I clued in on, now I can't remember what they said, and my iPad died, is they mentioned the Republic, but did they use the term Republic or New Republic? I think they say the Republic, right?
I think they say the Republic, yeah.
Right, which again is a clue, right? That you would only use the term of the Republic if you didn't think the Republic fell and came back again, right? They didn't say New Republic, they said Republic, which is interesting. Yeah,
interesting. All right.
And Kim noticeably doesn't say Republic when she introduces the X-Wings either. She's like, I called in some X-Wings to help you guys. And she doesn't say like New Republic X-Wings, because maybe the kids would identify.
Oh, good call.
Republic,
yeah, why is
it
like,
like,
new?
They're here to help.
Yeah, good call.
Yeah, that's interesting.
That's all fine.
I liked all that. That stuff was great. It was just more of like her conversation with KB, and at that point, KB leaving. I was like, oh, well, like, it's just motivation-wise. I was like, why wouldn't all the kids just stay with Kim?
She
just wanted to help.
Yeah, it's interesting how they did all that, and she definitely left the door open. I think also, he shot the like computer to like set her back a bit. Yeah, but like I don't think that was really gonna that doesn't end the story for Kim. Like if she wants to find, like she can just fix her computer and find that planet again. Like
I don't think we've seen the last of Kim.
No, definitely not. And she's like, and you can always call me. And I'm like, all right, here we go.
Yeah, here we go.
Yeah, that was a big. Yeah, that's another bit. I was like, this is definitely gonna foreshadow something here, where she's gonna be called on for help, and KB's gonna take her, chain code or her call, whatever her transmitter identification code is, and sort of use that later in the episode, in the series, maybe. So that's kind of cool. But anyways, we've talked enough about it. I cannot wait for that episode next week. Talk about that episode for another 2 hours next week. I love this show. It's giving us compelling mysteries to talk about, compelling lore, world building details that are just inherent to the show.
It's doing everything I wanted and so much more, which is wonderful.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, everyone. Thanks very much for hanging out with us at the Cantina. We'll talk to you next week on
Cantina Chronicles.